Welcome back to another episode of the Inside the Sports Den or the Sports Den. I can never remember the name of this thing with Will and James. I'm New Mexican sports editor Will Weber, joined as always by my esteemed colleague, James Barron. James, I know we tried to get a guest on this week. We just couldn't make the timing happen because, those damn school kids, they got their school schedule and
Man.
It's hard to coordinate. Like today, we're recording this on a Tuesday. And of course, the big news today was that the UNM president is stepping down, and it was raising all sorts of panic flags over there. So I had to cancel on him at the last second. Brandon Meyer at St. Mike's, feel terrible. We'll get you on, I swear, our next podcast. But for now, you're stuck with James and I.
Yeah, unfortunately. So, and it would have been nice because we could ask Brandon about how he felt about UNM president or Garnett Stokes leaving.
Right, exactly. And I've known Garnett Stokes since she got there. She walked into a horrible situation at UNM because she showed up roughly the same time as Eddie Nunez was taking over as athletic director, and they inherited just a gargantuan deficit for the athletic department. They were hemorrhaging cash, and the first thing they had to do was cut sports. That was the immediate identity fans had with Garnett Stokes and Eddie Nunez is, oh, you're the hatchet men. You're coming in here and killing sports. I see how it's sports.
You take away our beloved men's soccer team.
Yeah, and it turns out they were both very pro sports, and they had an identity that they later crafted, which helped the athletic department. But those first year or two, that was just a rough time for both of them. But I'll give it up for Stokes. She's a very big UNM Lobo athletics supporter. She's at most of the games, and she's always there, kind of doing the presidential thing, glad handing. And I've always been impressed. She's always remembered who I am, which. Of all the people she meets all the time, she still remembers me and has conversations with me. So I hate to see her go. She's been a huge asset to UNM.
I was going to say, it's probably because you're the one reporter she gets the most complaints about.
Right. And probably. I think I've actually mentioned this on the podcast before, but the best conversation I think I ever had with her is at halftime of a Lobo football game one time. And I asked her just out of the blue, I said, who lives in University House, the president's house on campus, which is right near the duck pond?
Yeah.
He said, no, I live there as the president. It's like, really? You're right across from the Sigma Chi house? And
exactly. I can imagine what Saturdays were like for her. Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah, fraternities aren't, the Greek system isn't what it used to be, but yeah, she's lived on campus in the University House the entire time. So shout out to her, but hate to see her go.
Impressive.
Yeah, it's been a good legacy for her. So she's going to ride it out through the end of the school year and then step down. 8 years in the job. But, boy, her and Eddie Nunez, they did a good job. And, look, speaking of UNM, last Friday, their football team just absolutely manhandled UCLA. I didn't see that coming. I thought if they win, they barely pull that thing off. But, James, I knew you were covering a football game that night. Did you have a chance to watch any of that?
No, I didn't watch any of it. I listened to it. I listened to the second half on the drive back. So I got to hear Robert Portnoy and Dontrell Moore describe it. But I mean, this could be like a red letter day in northern New Mexico football. Who would have thought that Santa Fe High and UNM football would both have winning records at the same time?
That's so weird, isn't it? Well, and of course, you're public enemy number one at Santa Fe High after the eviscerating column you wrote about them.
No, they loved what I wrote. Look at how they played, man. It was like they were inspired by me.
We'll touch on all the high school stuff, but yeah, you definitely got it out there. You took Santa Fe High, you made a nice little wood pile out of them, and then you threw a flaming Molotov cocktail on top of it. So, but we'll touch on the high school sports in a little bit. Let's stick with the Lobo football team. They beat UCLA 35-10. There's only 31,000 people in a stadium that seats 90,000. So obviously fans have bailed on UCLA, but they just crushed them. They made off with $1.2 million for playing that game. And then immediately, I think we both knew this was coming. On Sunday, The Athletic posted after UCLA fired their coach, they posted their top 7 candidates for the job, and one of them is Jason Eck. He just got here. He hasn't even changed the lettering on his mailbox, and he's already rumored for another job. So that didn't take very long.
Well, I think we should just accept that we're going to be the land of one and dones when it comes to football. Yeah. We're going to get a coach here for 1 year, and then they're going to leave, and then Lobo fans are going to hate him, and then they're going to end up on the schedule the next year, and basically the rallying cry for the next season is just beat this guy.
Yeah. Well, he had his weekly media luncheon today. They do it every Tuesday.
Did he resign yet?
That was my first question is, hey, how do you respond to people like The Athletic is one of the top sports
Yeah.
news agencies in the country, and they threw his name out there, but he gave the dreaded, "Well, I'm still the coach at UNM." Like, oh, here we go.
It's like, hey, it's like, okay, he's gone. His
Yeah,
one foot's already out the door.
yeah, and he kind of ended his little address there by bringing up how an old coach of his and how they're texting back and forth after the game. He said, "Yeah, he wound up going to Xavier, a little school in Cincinnati." He's like, "I think UNM fans know all about where Xavier is."
Here he is, yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, just the very thought of mentioning other schools makes people nervous. But gosh, you have really it's kind of mirroring the basketball situation a little bit.
Yeah,
You had one of the biggest wins in school history for basketball, and then literally like a few days later, your
yeah,
basketball coach
not
is
even
gone.
24 hours, dude.
Yeah, and football hasn't had a feel good moment since cars were invented, basically. And now you finally beat a Power Five school, you beat them to death, and your coach is already rumored for other jobs. Like, come on, what do you have to do?
Yeah, well, there's nothing you can do, man. You got to hope that maybe Eck has some integrity here and decides that, hey, if I can spend 2 or 3 years here and get this program to where it's competitive, then you can write you can basically write your ticket out to anywhere.
Yeah,
Leaving after a year and then going someplace, say UCLA, and then if you flame out after 2 or 3 years, it's like, well, you might as well have just stayed.
right.
I mean, granted, you're going to get the money, but your reputation kind of takes a bit of a hit. When you do stuff like that. I mean, shoot, I think maybe one of the more prime examples of recent memory is, I mean, let's look at Paul Weir. I mean, look at what the great job that he did at NMSU in like 2 years. Lobos pick him up, and within 3 years, he's done,
Yeah,
and we haven't heard from him since.
yeah. His career just went on a nosedive right after that. But Jason Eck does have Wisconsin roots, and of course, he played at Wisconsin.
And there's
And
already rumors that Wisconsin's going to open.
that Luke Fickle's already in trouble. He's 15-13 in his time there as head coach. Like, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, yeah. And it's going to be like this for the rest of the year, man. It doesn't matter what the Lobos do. They could lose their next 8 games here, and he's still going to be a hot commodity.
Yeah. Well, their next game is New Mexico State. They play the Aggies on September 27th in Albuquerque, and tickets are going pretty quickly for that game. And I think the expectation is that they're going to have 35,000 fans. They have not had a crowd over 30,000, I believe, I want to say since 2017, and that was during an Aggie game. So you got to go way, way back.
Way back.
To find a game that doesn't involve the Aggies where they go over 30,000, but usually New Mexico State draws a crowd of 25 to 30. But look, this is the first time, I believe that they were telling us today, that first time since the 60s that New Mexico State and the Lobos have winning records
Yeah.
playing a game in Albuquerque at the same time. So this is a very rare thing. Don't blink because
it's extremely rare. I was just doing the research on it here a few minutes ago, and when's the last time that the Lobos and Santa Fe High have had winning records at the same time?
Oh gosh. Oh, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, 85. That was it.
1985.
1985.
At the end of the season or at the same time?
At the same time. So it was like beginning of the year. It was like maybe 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in.
Yeah, the Santa Fe High is the high school version of Lobo football. That's kind of the way it has been. But it'll be interesting to see what the next 2 weeks are going to be. The buildup for the Lobo football team. You saw, look, it took. My thought is this: is when you're playing a football game and you run a couple of trick plays, kind of these gimmick plays, it's usually an indication that you're admitting that the other team is more physically gifted than you, that you're overmatched a little bit. So the Lobos ran trick plays in their first 2 snaps. And then from there on, they kind of settled into this, we're going to take it right at you. So it was an indication that they believed early on that they can not only just play with UCLA, but push them around a little bit. And so I asked Coach Eck that today, and he said it was basically on that first drive. They went down, scored a touchdown. Their first touchdown drive, it's like, you know what? We know we belong in this thing. We don't need to do all the trick plays. We like running trick plays; they're a lot of fun, but we don't need to do that to beat these guys. And They established it early. Their top running back gets hurt. He's out of the game. No big deal. They just replaced him with someone else. And it's honestly, it's one of the more impressive Lobo football victories I've seen in a long time, just because you didn't see it coming.
Yeah. You know what? I wrote my column today, and one of the things that I mentioned was just how they've established that running game, and they're a team that's just they're gonna grind you to death, with the ground game. And I think since the fourth quarter, when Idaho State took the lead, 22-17 in the fourth quarter, there, like the last, what are we talking about, 70 minutes of the game, the Lobos have held on to the ball for 46 minutes out of that stretch. I mean, that's impressive, and that's how that's how you win ball games, especially when, I'm not going to say that this team isn't talented, but I mean, you don't really know how good this group is, and I think they realize that their strength is in their rushing attack, so they're relying on that. And the nice thing about it is that it's giving your defense a break. I mean, when they only have to play 23 minutes out of a game, they're definitely going to be fresh and ready to roll when you get in the fourth quarter, when you need huge stops. And I mean, God, the game got away from UCLA so quickly in that fourth quarter. It went in 17-10 game, and you're thinking, okay, the Lobos might still lose this game, and then they just took over from there, and UCLA had no answer at all.
Yeah, they scored 3 touchdowns in the last 10 and a half minutes to just put the game away. But really, they had 2 other drives where they went for it on fourth down inside the 5-yard line and got stopped. One they fumbled, the other one they didn't convert. And so, look, if they convert those, you're talking like a 49-10 game. But in one of those drives, one of those drives, UCLA comes back and they kick a field goal. But it's one of these things where the Lobos were they were barely hanging on to the lead in the second half, but they really started to dominate the further they went on. They quite literally wore that team down, which is just so unusual to see. But
they did.
How would you like to be at UCLA? It's just a Big Ten play where you're like, well, maybe we can beat Northwestern. They play Northwestern next week, but they're looking at an 0-12 season. But that's the funny thing about it is you can have your tough seasons at UCLA. You can understand that we're probably going to finish near the bottom of the standings. Yeah. But when you lose to New Mexico, you just drop a nuke on it. Like, everything's gone. The coach is gone. Yeah. Transfer portal is opening loose. The whole, let's just reset the entire. In fact, let's just drop football for the rest of the season because we lost to New Mexico.
Let's just burn let's burn this whole beautiful campus down and just start all over again, or just build a giant shopping center and act like UCLA never happened.
Yeah, like how the hell do we lose to a bunch of foreigners? These guys from New Mexico. Where's the ICE agents when you need them? Get these guys out of here. Check identities for these guys, but. No, it's a good win for them. Look, the Aggies are coming off a loss. They got smacked by Louisiana Tech on the road, their first road game this season. But that should be a lot of fun because I think a couple of things with the Aggie-Lobo game. It's probably going to be close. There's going to be a few fights in the stands like there always are.
Mm-hmm.
and the game will, it'll be one of these things where it'll be hopefully the weather's okay, but it's a 2:00 kickoff on a Saturday. So hopefully the weather doesn't keep some people away.
Well, that's kind of been the issue in September's now, man. The weather's just not the weather, especially in the afternoons and evenings on the weekends. Gosh, man, it's kind of a crapshoot. I mean, you look at what happened last weekend. I mean, especially up here, they moved up to the Santa Fe High and the Capital football games.
Yeah,
I had a fear that they weren't going to be able to get those in. Fortunately, the weather kind of dissipated, and really, it turned out to be a non-issue. But when you're having to factor that into your plans. That's not necessarily a good thing. And I'm just taking a quick glance on the Weather Channel app that I've got, and they're saying it's a 15% chance of rain in Albuquerque on Saturday, and they're expecting the thunderstorms in the afternoon. So could be a long day, but it could be a great day too. I think it just kind of depends on how Mother Nature decides to play this thing out.
It's weird because I think just about every weekend. You and I have had weather delays at the high school games that we're covering. Last week, the St. Mike's, who did they play? St. Mike's
had Academy.
Yeah, that was
and you had to go through an hour lightning delay, even though you guys didn't get really get any rain. You had lightning in the area, so you had to stop.
Yeah, it rained a little bit at halftime, but the thing is, it was such a long weather delay. I went back to my car. I literally fell asleep and woke up, and it was one of those things where. Oh, where am I? What time is it?
Did I miss the rest of the game?
Back to the field. That was right when you called me, right when I was walking back up to the field. Like, thank goodness it hadn't started yet. I just for about maybe 60 seconds, I had no idea where I was, what time it was, what day it was. I didn't know it. I didn't
If
even
you're
know
back with the journal and you're at Artesia or something.
how in the heck did I wind up in my car? We were drooling off onto the seatbelt for crying out loud. So, but we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about the high school stuff. We've seen it. We've seen it all through 4 weeks. The weather delays, some really good performances, and look, I think at this point, not to sound like the coach in the post game, but we know who they are at this point. So
Yeah, you'd like to think you do, but yeah, for the most part, we kind of do.
So we'll take a break. We'll come right back and finish it off with that. All right, last weekend I was at the St. Mike's game. I saw them beat up on Albuquerque Academy. Of course, that game took forever because there's a weather delay.
Lightning delay, yeah.
Over 600 combined yards passing. I think 67 or 68 passing attempts, which
oh my gosh, wow.
Really unheard of for a high school game. But yeah, St. Mike's is still undefeated. You got Santa Fe High, which is rolling right along.
Yeah, 3-1 now.
And then now you have Capital. Capital.
Or Capital.
Capital did finally get a win. It wasn't pretty. But Capital finally got their win, so they can avoid the donut there. But yeah, let's talk. Look, we're at the halfway point. The halfway point of the regular season comes this weekend. Like I don't really see a lot of surprises. Maybe the Demons being 3-1 is probably the big one. But what do you?
I think that would be the big one.
Yeah. What are your thoughts with them?
Well, they kind of they made me look bad after the column that I wrote last week by up on Albuquerque High. And one thing I will say is that out of all the 6A teams that Santa Fe High has played over the years, Albuquerque High is one of those teams where I think they feel like they've got a shot at beating. So you go in with a little bit of belief, like, hey, we got a shot here. But I think these next 3 weeks, I mean, they've got Sandy at home, El Dorado at home, and then they go on the road for a four. Here's a crazy thing. Next week they play El Dorado. That is their senior night. They play their last 4 games all in October, all on the road. Yeah. They go to Atrisco, they go to La Cueva, Las Lunas, and then they finish up with West Mesa, all down south. So that's crazy to think they're going to be with their home by next week. But these next 3 weeks are going to be crucial for them. You've got Sandia, who's 0-4. You got El Dorado, that's 2-2, but they played pretty tough against Las Lunas. So they're playing some pretty good ball. And then you've got Atrisco. Those are 3 winnable games for Santa Fe High. And I think you want to see how they do against Sandia first. If they beat Sandia, I mean, shoot, they could roll into La Cueva game, maybe 5-2, 6-1. I mean, gosh, it's crazy to think, Santa Fe High at 6-1 going into the La Cueva game. But I think this is where we're really going to find out how good Santa Fe High is. They struggled last year against Sandia. I mean, God, they tore them up in the first quarter, and it was never really close. El Dorado, they had a shot at winning that game in the fourth quarter. The breaks didn't go their way. Same thing with the Trisco Heritage, man. They almost had a Hail Mary at the end of the game that almost worked, and they almost scored a touchdown to maybe force a tie. If they can win 2 out of those 3 games, we could be talking about this team maybe making the playoffs, because it could come down to how they do in the last week of the season against West Mesa. And if they can get to 6 wins, I mean, 6-4,
that gets in the playoffs.
Might be able to get them in. The problem that they're going to have is you look at the first 3 games of the schedule. I mean, they played a Capital team that's probably not going to win another game this year. Belen is better, but they're still not. I mean, they may make the playoffs, but we're not talking about them potentially challenging for the district title. And then St. Mike's is St. Mike's, and granted, it was a 15-0 game going into the fourth quarter, but still, they couldn't get anything done offensively, and that's a big reason why they lost that game. They still have some things to iron out in their offense. I think they showed a lot of good things, throwing out some different formations, spreading teams out, not allowing them to stick 8-9 guys in the box was huge, and it opened up their run game. But they also threw the ball enough to where teams had to respect that. And that's the recipe, is they've got to make teams respect their pass game just enough to keep that extra guy out of the box and give them a chance to be able to run the ball. They can do that. Like I said, they got a chance to be 5-2, 6-1 going into the La Cueva game. I won't go any further than that, because La Cueva is La Cueva. And here's a fun fact for you. So the Demons and and the Bears have played each other 14 times since 1998, which is the last time Santa Fe High beat La Cueva. The aggregate score of those 14 games is 690 to 60. La Cueva beating them by an average of 49-4.
Yeah. I'm surprised they've scored that many.
I know, I know, but there were a couple of games where they actually scored 14 points, which skewed the Santa Fe High average a little higher and everything. But I mean, they got shut out in 7 of those games that they played against La Cueva, and I think that just kind of highlights kind of where the talents disparity and in some ways the confidence disparity is between those two programs. But be that as it may, that's for a month down the road here right now. I mean, things are looking good for Santa Fe High, and hopefully I think for people in Santa Fe, they want to see the Demons do well. And I mean, let's be honest, it's been 39 years since they made it to the big school playoffs, and that would be a hell of a story in and of itself to see Santa Fe High in the playoffs, because that's that's something that they hadn't done, and really even when they went to 4A, they only got 2 playoff berths during that stretch. So this would be a momentous opportunity. This is a momentous opportunity for Santa Fe High, and hopefully they take advantage of it.
Especially after a recent local journalist completely blew them out of the water by saying they didn't have the athletic talent, which I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when you walked into Ivanhoe Stadium for that Albuquerque High game just to see what the reaction would be.
Oh, I got told to leave.
Yeah.
I was told I was no longer welcome there, but hey, I stuck around.
They're going to have T-shirts printed up with your column sig on it. So your picture.
Oh, I know.
The season.
And the funny thing is, I didn't say they weren't athletic. I just said they weren't good enough. I'm not, I mean that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you've got what?
They're terrible. Oh my god.
Yes, that's exactly what I said. I know. I love how people have kind of have bastardized my column into twisting it into what they want to believe, and not necessarily what I actually said.
Yeah.
Thanks, Will. You're just perpetuating the myth.
Just making it worse, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, look, I would love to see Santa Fe High in the big school playoffs, even if they get the 12th seed and they're having to play a 5, which means you're maybe going to Volcano Vista, which seems locked into the 5 seed at this point. But just get there. Just get there and be a part of that show. Even if you're one and done, it'd be a hell of a story. But you're right. I think they do. The magic number for them is 6.
Yeah.
If they can win 6 games, that
maybe
means
even 7. It might even have to be 7.
It could be. But if you win 4 games in that district, that should be enough, you figure, to get you in. But
that should be.
Yeah, it would. You're right. It would be a good story. On the other hand, you have Capital, which really struggled, but they did win last week, 7-6. And
barely, though.
But at least, look, you and I both had a chance to dissect Capital. Just their offense is just not terribly efficient, to say the least. But
they're just not strong enough. I mean, they really aren't up front. I mean, their offensive line has been their Achilles heel the last 2 years, and that's something they got to fix. I wouldn't even say that that it's not even just a string thing, but they're not a very good unit right now. They are not coached up well. They are not strong enough, but I don't even think they have the technique necessarily to play well, and I think that's why they're looking so bad, is that not even getting a chance to be able to get into their offensive sets.
And then the other team in town is St. Mike's. Of course, they stay undefeated last week by knocking Academy around. They gave up 21 points, which I'm sure what they're all talking about at St. Mike's. So they get so frustrated when they give up points, even with the guys in the field. It just drives them crazy. Of course, they gave up a late touchdown in the last minute, which just
that's going to drive Joey crazy.
No, they were all mad afterwards. A team that they win by 30 some points, and they're all mad about it. But their winning streak is now 24 straight games, which is, I believe, tied for 8th or 7th longest in state history, which ironically is tied with Eunice, who they play this weekend. Eunice also had 24 in a row. And Eunice is a team that Joey Fernandez told his guys after that Academy game that Academy is probably the best, most physical team they've seen all season. But the best passing team they're going to see all season is Eunice.
You
and I both saw what Eunice did last week, and they scored 88 points against a team from Texas. They've scored 238 points through 4 games. This team's averaging 60 points a game. So
that's scary. That's scary. And it's not like, I mean, the interesting thing is the one time they played in their class was Estancia, and they only won the game by 4. But
Mhm.
they've beaten 2 3A schools, and then they beat a West Texas school.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's pretty impressive on their end.
Yeah, Eunice does play in a really nice facility. It's basically a brand new facility with turf and the modern lights and all that stuff. They're coming to Santa Fe. You're playing at elevation, and they're not going to cut the grass all week there. They're probably going to water the grass all. So when you step on the field, you won't be able to say,
Watering right now.
yeah, they're watering it as we speak. And you know that when you step on the field, the shoes are going to disappear underneath the grass line. So Santa Fe, St. Mike's is where speedy offenses go to die because it's that old school grass field.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but St. Mike's well on their way to winning potentially 30 games in a row, which make them only the third team, I think, third or fourth team in state history to win at least 30 if they can run the table during the regular season. But yeah, they're a fun team to watch. A lot of tools, but I think the longer we progress through the season, as well as St. Mike's does, I think Santa Fe High has the opportunity to really gain some momentum and kind of capture the hearts and minds of a lot of people because Santa Fe High is just one of those schools. They can galvanize a lot of people when they do
Oh,
well.
they certainly can. Yeah.
They're still the flagship school of the city. I know it's going to make a lot of people from Capital upset and St. Mike's upset.
Yeah. But
It's
it's the truth, man. I mean, people pay attention when Santa Fe High is doing well. I mean, shoot, the last time, I mean, look at the state championship game in soccer 4 years ago. I mean,
Mhm.
that place was packed, and a lot of those people were from Santa Fe High. You look at 2019 when they made that run to the state championship game, and the pit was just
Yeah.
14, 15,000 people there for that game. I mean, it was a great atmosphere. So that when Santa Fe High gets to when Santa Fe High gets rolling, the city really rallies behind it, and they haven't had a reason to rally behind Santa Fe High football for quite a long time. And now,
Yeah.
I mean, you're staring at 4-1 straight in the face here. If you can beat Sandia, and the last time they did that was 23 years ago. As a matter of fact, they've been 4-1. What is it? Twice, I think, in the last 39 years, or 3 times in the last 39 years, and this would be one of them.
I believe Bill Moon was coaching one of those teams, wasn't he?
That's right. The 0-2 team that started off 4-1 when it was on its way to going 5-1 and lost that game
Yeah.
to
Well, I mean,
Sandia.
Coach Moon was at the St. Mike's game. Of course, he goes by himself. He sits at the very top right-hand side of the bleachers at St. Mike's. He's kind of incognito. He sits there and no one really pays attention to him. He just takes it all in. So
Oh, which he loves. I'm sure he finally loves not having the attention on him.
yeah. Now, high school football season, it's hard to believe it's already at the halfway point. And gosh, here we are, middle of September. The high school cross country, volleyball, and
Yeah.
its soccer seasons are all going to be over with in 6 weeks. But everything should be done. And then football will be starting its playoffs the first week of November too, which is it's crazy how fast it goes. But a lot of cool storylines, a lot of good players, a lot of good teams to watch. And yeah, I think hopefully our weekends are going to be packed in November with maybe the Demons, definitely St. Mike.
Definitely St. Mike's, and shoot, I mean, let's kind of give shout outs to some of the regional the schools in our area. I mean, Los Alamos is looking at potentially an undefeated season here,
Yeah.
and they'll definitely host a home game, but that's a team that could potentially go deep into the playoffs as well. And then, you can't discount Robertson.
Yeah.
They've shown over the years that they are that they're always a good football program year in and year out. They're 3-1 right now. So, you kind of expect them to also be in the conversation when it comes down to the end in 3A. So you have that. You have West Las Vegas, and they've been able to keep themselves relevant in 3A, especially with the tough wins that they've had over the last couple of weeks. So there's a lot of really interesting storylines just from the football standpoint, and like you said, haven't even talked about soccer, haven't talked about volleyball. I mean, shoot, Capital Boys soccer right now is 7-1.
Yeah.
Um, volleyball. I mean, Santa Fe High is looking at potentially being a top 14. St. Mike's, they're 7-0, and their head coach is now the acting secretary of CYFD.
Yeah.
So that's another fun story that I'm going to get to write about today.
She's one of the few coaches who's going to appear in the sports section and the news section simultaneously.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't get that very often.
Yeah. How'd you like that life? That you go from CYFD, running CYFD, which can't be easy, to coaching at a private school, which can't be easy. So,
Oh, and by the way, you probably have to take volleyball questions in the middle of your CYFD press.
right.
So those go up.
Yeah. Never work both of them into the same interview. You could do that.
There you go.
No, but it is good to see Capital's soccer team playing so well because, look, we, as anyone who pays attention to high school sports knows, Capital is in need of a hug. Man, they just need a
They are. They
story.
definitely need one, and the soccer team is providing that little bit of love that they need right now.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe in the next week or two, we can bring in somebody from Capital soccer team and just talk about that because they certainly deserve it. But yeah, volleyball, soccer, cross country, nearing the home stretch of their seasons, and football grinding away. And then off week for the Lobo football team. And the Aggies are off this weekend. New Mexico Highlands does play at home this weekend. Gives you a chance to go out and see Jeffrey Jones, the country's leading rusher, through 2 games. He's averaging 15 yards a game for New Mexico Highlands. But yeah, good times, and just really it's been a good season so far.
No, it definitely has, and like you said, we haven't even hit the halfway point yet of the fall season, and we've already got we've got plenty to write about. We shouldn't lack for anything.
Yeah. Well, that'll wrap it up for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and again, we'll try to get Brandon Meyer in here from St. Mike's next week. Brandon, just a really good kid. James and I have both talked to him for a couple of years. He'll be a fun guest to have on here. But thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.